7215 for Carpet Masters.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Here at U-Turn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small government. Join your hosts, Nadia Renner, Tom Murphy, and Eric Steinman, as we work to put local governments on a diet and champion the charities that support your community. So come on, join us and let's turn it around.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. Happy Sunday. I am so excited to be back. Felt like this week went by so slow, and it's finally Sunday and we're here live. We got Tom back in the studio. Welcome back, Tom.
It's nice to be back. You know, I kind of went through the old, Southern California cold and Cheska. Oh, it's nice to be back.
Well, just for the record, in case your voice goes out, we know you've been sick, so we'll be okay.
We'll see. I think I can press through it.
Okay, fantastic.
And Eric's got stranded in a snowstorm somewhere in the south. He may phone in for a little bit, but he's trying to get home, so we may not even hear from him today. And if we do, it'll be short.
Okay. Well, Eric, we hope you get back home and safe, and we'll probably hear from you. Today we have a great show. We are going to talk about, so what did you buy? And we're not talking about Christmas. We're not talking about gifts. We're actually talking about, how would you say this? What we bought into voting towards the propositions that were out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to do today here. We're muddling along here. We got some sound issues, but yeah, what we it's what did you buy? What did the Inland Empire in this last election, what was it, just a month ago, which the results are finally out.
Can I just say this? I didn't know this, but elections were November 6th, and I think this was kind of important to probably share because I didn't know. Once you vote, it takes so long to actually know the results of the voting. I really thought it was kind of like a 2-week process, like let's count every vote. And no, it takes a very long time. So we had to kind of wait for results like right now to really kind of say, okay, this really did happen, or this person really did win, or whatever, because it takes a long time, and it's kind of like a roller coaster. Some were like approved, some weren't, and then it was just a big roller coaster, and finally we have the final say on each proposition, each person that went and was elected, and that type of stuff. Yeah,
and I'm not sure I understand exactly why, but there has been a change in the way they handle votes. Mm-hmm. And it's resulted in a very long process to really get to the final what they call certified results. And I think it's a good thing because the state of California made some adjustments to how they handle the votes so that every vote is counted.
Right.
Which I think is a good thing. I think is a little surprise. Like there are a number of at the state and I think at the federal level, there are a number of campaigns mm-hmm. that, on election night, the Republican was ahead.
Right.
But then as time went by, their lead
started falling.
And actually that happened that way for Riverside. Election at the end of election evening, Russ Bogue was ahead by I don't know, maybe 2 or 3%. Mm-hmm. And then they began to count votes, and that went up, but then it slowly began to slip back.
Yeah.
And Jeff Hewitt actually ended winning, I think, by like 1,500, 2,000 votes.
I was able to talk to him, and this is kind of when I started learning about how long it really takes to get the votes in. And he said, he's like, I wish I could just go to a mountain and not have a phone because it goes up, it goes down. And he's like, so we're not going to know until like it takes some time. And I was like, really? It takes that long? He's like, yes. Like, he's like, I wake up one day, I'm up, I go to sleep, I'm down. And it's just like kind of.
It's got to be a roller coaster.
Oh, man. I don't think I would be able to like sit there. I think I would sit there and just watch the whole thing the whole time and not do anything else.
I'd be down there at the registrar of voters looking over people's shoulders. But anyway, So the results are finally in.
Yep.
You know, they finally certified the elections both in San Bernardino County and Riverside County. So here's kind of what we did. Remember a couple shows back, and you can take a look at uturnradio.com, our website, and listen to this episode. But we went over, we talked to some folks in Barstow. Barstow had Measure M on the ballot. And we had a conversation about that. Measure M was they wanted to raise sales tax out in Barstow.
By 1%.
Well, what we did was we thought, let's look across the Inland Empire and take a look at measures across the Inland Empire, kind of what's in them, and what did they, did they win, did they lose? So that's kind of what we did, and that's what we're going to kind of go over in the show.
Which goes into what did we buy? Now that we know what we bought.
And the reason it's what we bought is because one of the things we learned is that almost all of these initiatives or measures are about money. More money.
I also, before we keep going into our show, I want to share two things. First, if this is your first time listening to U-Turn Radio, anybody that calls in gets rewarded, 909-792-5222. That's 909-792-5222. You get rewarded by spinning the wheel for charity, and we donate money to your favorite charity working here in the Inland Empire. So I wanted to say that, one. And two, because I feel like we run out of time every time, and we're like trying to rush at the last few seconds or minutes. We're moving to Thursdays starting the new year.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely want to share that because last week we didn't share that, and I think it's important to let you guys know that we'll be moving Thursdays at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Every Thursday, U-Turn Radio starting next year here on KCAA.
Yep, 3 to 4, but the format doesn't change in terms of if a listener calls in, like you said, we will spin the wheel and donate to their favorite charity.
Awesome. So that's that, and we could now probably jump into what do we buy? And we're not talking about gifts.
What did the Inland Empire buy? Okay, so first there's a disclaimer, and that is the disclaimer is we just kind of went rapidly through all the measures and took these money figures out of what's written in the measure.
Okay.
And so that. This, the figures in here, use them as a general guiding principle, but, don't quote me in terms of accuracy. But what we did is we went through and we totaled it up, and overall, if you put it together, the Inland Empire elected or chose to give $1.3 billion with a B dollars to government entities of some sort, either city or county. Mostly of these are city or school district.
Billion.
Yeah,
that
billion
is
with a B.
So much money. Like I can't
That's
even.
A lot of money.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Billions.
No, it's a lot. So we're like that's a lot of money. What where? And remember what this is this is a pool. In general, there are two types of dollars, I guess, that are going. There's sales taxes, or sales tax measures. So that's money that's going to come, out of your pocket as you go, to the, you go and buy a Starbucks or something like that. Increased sales tax is going to go to the city.
Right.
The other type of money is loans, and the loans are all school stuff. It's all school bonds. So the school districts basically came to the people and said, we need more money. And we need it specifically to build infrastructure. So we need a lot of money.
Right.
And in fact, if you look, almost all of this money is loans to the schools so that they can supposedly maintain or construct facilities.
Before we go into details of what exactly we bought with this proposition or with these loans and money, let's go to the phone. We have a phone call. Welcome to U-Turn.
Hi, my name is Rose, the victim.
Hi, is this Rose?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Rose. How are you? Sorry, you got off a little bit in the beginning, so I wasn't sure.
I'm
Rose, we're having a hard time hearing you. Can you maybe move a little better? I'm assuming you're on a cell phone. Maybe you can.
Let me walk outside. There's kind of bad reception in here.
Okay.
Let me just step outside. There's we're in a building that doesn't have any internet, so that's probably why.
Okay.
Well, come on in. Come on in. Yes, it is. Just walk in straight to the door.
This is actually interesting. You hear her talking in the background, inviting somebody in.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
good
we have over 185 people showing up to this. This is our 10th annual Christmas memorial for families of murder victims.
So you have an event today. It's it's just starting. So you're calling us right now as your event is starting. That's why you're inviting people in. But tell us, so what's the name of your foundation?
We're Families and Friends of Murder Victims. We are a nonprofit organization, and we are dedicated to providing information, support, friendship to people who have experienced the death of a loved one through murder or the violent act of murder or attempted murder. Mm-hmm. And our mission statement is to restore a sense of hope and to provide a pathway of well-being for those who have lost a loved one to murder. And our goal is to help victims become survivors. We have a chapter in Coachella, San Gabriel Valley, Oakland, West Bend, and Colton.
How long have you been working with the foundation or the organization, Rose?
I started with my first meeting in 1996. I attended, and I got involved, and I've been director since 1999, 2000. And today actually is our 10th annual memorial here at the Diocese of San Bernardino. But we've been doing memorials for the past 15 years.
That's outstanding. And Rose, you mentioned you had how many guests today, or how many people attending?
We have approximately 185 attending, with about 85 kids and 100 adults. And our goal was to try to get a gift for all the kids that are in attendance. I made a personal ornament for each of the families for their loved one that they will be placing on a tree today, and then they'll get to take home their ornament at the end of the program. I do a special slideshow. The families love to see their loved ones on a slideshow, and I do that. I do a personalized slideshow. And I do centerpieces, and the diocese opens up their doors for us, and they don't charge us to have the event here. So we are very, very, very lucky to have them supporting us 100%.
Rose, would you be able to share a story with us and how the organization has helped, whether it's that family or a personal story?
On November 10th, 1994, my life forever changed. My daughter, Jennifer Leanne Balber, a Southern California gas company meter reader, was fatally shot in the line of service in Rialto, California. She was 20 years old. I struggled for 2 years trying just to figure out what to do with my life, and that's when I found this organization, and it was somewhere where I could go, and people understood my grief. I could cry. They knew my grief. My family supported me, but when you're with other people that have been through the same thing you have, it makes it a little bit easier. So I got involved, and I always say I could walk away from the group and lead my new normal life, but who's going to be there for the new families? And actually today we have 15 new families that have been welcomed to a club that they don't want to belong to. And we have a family here that their loved one was just killed 3 months ago. And and I'm here to help them for support. And we depend on donations. I mean, without donations, I couldn't do this. I used to take it out of my own pocket before, and people go, you need to start getting donations. So, we have 3 families who donate toys. They have toy drives and it's not a local thing. They have toy drives amongst their families, and that helps us a lot. But every year we're always wondering, are we going to get donations? Are we going to be able to give toys to kids? Are we going to can we do this? And, we're just blessed. We were blessed this year.
I definitely have to say that I cannot imagine losing, I don't have kids, but just a family member in general. And I think that you bring up such a great point as far as support. I think that it's usually until it happens to somebody where you understand that type of support to help somebody else, and to be there for them is a great thing that you guys are doing there.
Oh, thank you. And like I say, they started without me. They're doing the invocation and stuff. We're getting ready to pass out ornaments and just have fellowship with these families. We have them coming from Barstow, Victorville, Coachella. We have a family here today that's from Joshua Tree, which is up by the desert. We have their family of 12 just walked in.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Sounds like you need to get back. So, Rose, one of the things we like to do, our program is about big-hearted communities and small government, and this is the big-hearted community part. We believe that really the best help for people is an involved and active community that's dependent on each other rather than dependent on maybe government help.
Yes.
And in a thing like this, your neighbor has to help you as you are helped and as you are now helping. So we really support this type of thing. I am spinning our little spin wheel here to see where we end up. And we are at $1,300.
Nice.
Oh, my. That's, awesome.
So
awesome.
It's part of what we do. We're happy to do it. And Nadia will be in touch with you probably tomorrow to kind of.
Yeah, we'll let you get back to your event, and congratulations on 10 years. It's your 10th anniversary, and
Thank you.
and I'm so happy to hear about different type of help that is provided here for people that are going through stuff like this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch with you, and I can email you, and I'll send you some photos.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rose, and we'll put that and share that on our social media as well. Thank you so much, and enjoy your event today.
Thank you.
That's a donation that we're really happy to give,
Yeah.
but obviously one we prefer. We wish we didn't have to. Did you say 10 new families? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. It's so heartbreaking, especially I feel like holidays might be like the hardest, I think, for just people and family. Like I said, I can't imagine that, but it's just I can only imagine. And in holidays, it's always a little trickier, I feel like. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think
so. Let's shift gears and go back to
a little bit difficult to shift gears, but let's go ahead and we'll kind of go back to. Okay, so what we were doing was we wanted to see kind of what the result was from this last election in terms of initiatives and measures were on the ballot. So we did a real quick look at all the initiatives and measures that are on the ballot, that were on the ballot in San Bernardino County and Riverside County. And then we kind of did a rough back of the napkin calculation and totaled up how much that represented. And it came to like 1.3 billion again. That's an order of magnitude, and it was kind of separated into two things: either new taxes being paid to city governments, or bonds that school districts are now. The voters have authorized school districts to go out and borrow and spend money based on the voters' ability to pay that back via taxes on it typically goes through their property tax bill or whatever. So
this past election, we practically said we're okay for you guys, or it's okay for you guys to go and get these bonds to better the schools, because if I'm not mistaken, that's what that particular proposition said. It was for the buildings to help or to build or fix things that needed to be fixed within the school.
Yeah, and we can get into that a little bit more when we kind of hit those specifically. But as kind of an overall look, there were 6 bond measures that we talked about
right
on the ballot, and if I counted right, 4 of them were approved, and that was 1.3 billion of the total. So most of this money is loan money that's going to go to the schools. And then there were 11 different initiatives or measures on the ballot for cannabis tax. I'm going to say pot because it's just
weed.
easier. Weed tax.
I get to say weed.
So there were 11 there were 11 measures out there, and
right.
10 of them were approved. The only reason why the 11th wasn't approved is that it was basically 2 in one city and one won and the other didn't.
Right, but other than that, everything else got approved.
So voters are approving weed taxes, and then there were 5 sales tax in different cities. They increased the sales tax, and 5 won. So that's roughly 27 million going into city coffers. And then there's a couple of actually 3 utility transfers, and we can talk about this a little more. But with a utility transfer, the city or the entity owns the utility. So,
right.
So I'll use Colton as an example. Colton owns a utility that generates electricity, and so they make money off that, right? By people paying their power bill. And what this does is, instead of that money kind of going back into the power system,
right, to like make it better, or
exactly.
all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. We're gonna transfer some of that money over to the general fund, which is the general pay for libraries,
like public places.
Basically what they call general services, just generally what a city does. So libraries, filling in the potholes on the city streets, parks, that type of thing. The general fund, and we've talked about the show. That is not unusual to hear cities saying, "Man, we need more. We need a bigger piece of the tax pie to pay for what we generally do."
Yeah, I don't know. Well, this makes me think of, and it goes back to the commercial. We've mentioned this commercial of Domino's. I don't think that Domino's would have did a marketing on fixing the potholes in your city if the city was using the money to fix things like that.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. If
a pizza,
exactly.
Anytime that I think potholes, and that's why I know that they did a great commercial, because that's the first thing or even when I hit a pothole, I'm like, where's Domino's Pizza at? Can they cover this hole? But that means that we're obviously not doing, or the city's not necessarily taking care of those type of things. That there's a restaurant or business using that, and everybody wants their streets fixed, because my tires get beat up all the time. I have to, in the long run. So I think they're probably not definitely spending that money towards potholes is the point of what I was saying right now.
Yeah. And then, it's kind of funny, the last kind of general topic for these initiatives and measures were general political things. And so there were like 6 measures across both counties that had to do with politics, if you will. Only 2 of those were approved. It's just kind of funny that it's like, yeah, go ahead and spend money, but let's not make any changes in terms of politics. But I thought that was.
It's always interesting how politics gets broken down, or how it's kind of given how the information's given. Yeah. So to
kind of encapsulate here before we get a break, in general. Government organizations went to the people and said, we need more money for schools and we need more money for general operations. And in general, the people in the cities were convinced by those arguments, and they approved those requests via approving the measures. In the second half of this show, we're going to talk about that and see if maybe there might be something behind some of those requests, and maybe we need to be a little more careful when we approve these things.
Or when we buy these things.
Yeah.
We're going to go to commercial break. More here on U-Turn Radio when we get back.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
The House of Ruth has been providing life-saving domestic violence services since 1977. Participation in House of Ruth programming is open to all battered women, men, and children. Domestic violence is a public health issue. 1 in 4 women are abused by their partner, and it's 1 in 7 for men. Even 1 in 3 teens are exposed to dating violence in their relationships. If you or someone you know needs help or support, House of Ruth can help. Call the House of Ruth 24-hour crisis hotline, 877-988-5559, or visit their website, houseofruthinc.org. The Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley, protecting animals for more than 4 decades. The Humane Society's mission is to prevent cruelty and neglect to animals and to provide for the health and well-being of animals with an emphasis on spay or neuter programs to prevent pet overpopulation. Visit the Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley for your pet's medical needs, 909-386-1400, or visit hssbv.org. The Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley, a leading nonprofit organization in caring for all animals in need.
For more U-Turn Radio, go visit our website at uturnradio.com. That's uturnradio.com. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at uturn_radio. That's at uturn_radio. Or follow us on Facebook at U-Turn Radio.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn Radio Show right here on KCAA.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. Before the commercial break, we were going over what we bought. And when we say what we bought, we're not talking about gifts here. We are talking about what we voted for that got approved this past election, because it took some time to get the final results in. I didn't know it takes that long, but so we're covering the ones that got approved.
Right.
And Tom believes that it's more than what we bought.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's kind of interesting because at this point in the show, here's what we had planned was an interview.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can I just say this? First of all, I plan for interviews all the time because I think that it's important to share different point of views. Anytime that, we do any type of research or we share information, I always like to say, okay, well, what are the pros? What are the cons? Who's saying what? You know, it's part of like how I like, how usually people get educated. I feel like it's like, okay, what are we against? That, and that's how technically you start looking, and that's why we invite people to come in and talk about some of these issues. Yeah,
exactly. And like you said, you want to present kind of a one side of the story, the other side of the story. You know, we're kind of a small government organization, so we have our perspective,
right?
But you always want to get an interview with somebody from the government, right?
So or from the city, or from somebody that's going to give us either more information of why it's happening or a reason, or somebody that could just easily inform us about something that we might not know.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, we were going to interview somebody, a councilman from San Bernardino City, right? And we wanted to talk about their Measure X, right? Which is a pot tax or a weed tax, right? What it does is it limits commercial cannabis permits to 1 permit for every 12,500 people in the city, with a maximum of 17 permits available.
Right.
So we were kind of interested in that.
Actually, I was really interested just because I wanted to really know more about it, because obviously we know weed has existed for years, and, you know, to get into go through, now it's approved, to then saying, hey, let's do the taxes on it. You know, it's something that's really interesting to me. And so I reached out to the city to try to get an interview. And this is not to like, I'm just talking the experiences that I have.
Dig in. Go for it.
The experiences that I have, they give me the runaround, and it's so crazy. I usually call, and from one call it leads to a different call, or call this other person. So I do it, and it takes me like a while to get a hold of these different people, or we play phone tag, or I email, and then. So this has been my experience since I started working here at U-Turn, where I go back and forth with different people depending on who I'm trying to get a hold of. Once I get a hold of whomever, for most part, they declined the interview. And I always try to understand or figure out why, if we're only asking for information or their point of view because they're dealing with these measures or these things on a hands-on, you know, like we're just trying to inform people and we just want to know we want some answers. So from all of this stuff, the last time that I reached out to the city to get a councilman to talk about this stuff, they referred me to a new point person, and it's a third party, and it's a PR company for the city.
Wait. So, okay, so Nadia's role as executive producer, one of the things that she does for us is she tries to run down interviews with folks.
Right.
So you went to a city councilman in San Bernardino and said, hey, we want to do
I actually went to
interview.
3, just to throw it out there.
To 3?
3 different ones, yes.
Okay. And what happened?
And from one declined immediately.
Okay.
So the second one said, you need to call this other person, and that's like your point person for any interviews now going on.
Okay.
And I said, oh, perfect. Now I could just deal with one
Yeah,
person.
okay.
I don't have to scramble every
Efficiency.
time. So I'm like, this is probably one of the best investments they did, because obviously it's an investment because it's a third party. It's a PR company that is going to public relations.
So this city of San Bernardino, which is, if I remember correctly, they finally made it out of bankruptcy 2015, 2016, right? They hired a PR company that you have to go through to actually get an interview with them?
So pretty much this person goes and asks the people that I'm trying to get an interview with, and she pretty much is a middleman that says yes or no. However, just to give you a quick little background, I come from radio where we did the same thing, but with comedians, actors, singers, and they have a PR. It's normal.
Okay.
But we got the interviews. and I'm talking about A-listers. I'm not talking about... So to me, it's a little bit mind-blowing that I cannot get a councilman, I can't get people that work in the city to do an interview. And just to also throw it out there, you know, it's Sunday. People are probably like, yeah, you guys are on there on Sundays at 2. Who's going to want to do that when they have a 9 to 5, maybe Monday to Friday? Well, I've also suggested that we can pre-record the interview. We can go to them. They don't have to come anywhere. Yeah. And I even said, just call in, or if not, we can pre-record and have them call in. So what I'm saying is that I've given different options because I understand not everybody's available on Sundays. And then I went through the PR girl, and she said that they declined the interview. And I just thought it was funny, because I've done the same job for other radio stations. And like I said, I was able to book A-lister actors that are out there. I'm trying to book a councilman, and they declined me.
So what you're saying is, in general, based on your experience, it's difficult to get an interview with a government representative.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty easy to get an interview with a star, an A-lister.
A Hollywood A-lister, super mega star. Absolutely.
Interesting.
It's has been the hardest. And I asked, and I said, am I doing something wrong? Or is there certain topics that you guys want to talk about so we can make it into a show? I did suggest that because I said, well, maybe it's that it's our questions, maybe it's our topics. But I'm like, it's a weed. We're talking about weed pot. It's a measure. It's something that people voted for. It's not something that's like...
No, you would hope that a representative would be able to come to the podium and say, okay, here's what this measure is about. Here's why we put it on the ballot, because they put it on the ballot. And here was our intent in doing that.
Well, most importantly, I would think they have all the knowledge that they already have, or because they sat there before to put it on a ballot. It's not like they're going to say, oh, let's just put it on a ballot. I'm pretty sure there was meetings and discussions and why they want to put it on a ballot. So there's a process, I'm assuming, before it's being placed. So because they also kind of said they might not be ready to talk about it because A, we don't know if it's approved, but we're like, no, I already know the time limit. And B, how can you not be ready to talk about something that your people put on the ballot for the people to vote? So it's been very interesting. I feel like I took my frustration out.
Okay.
So take over.
and just to maybe, to spread the blame, if you will. This is not the first time this, and we're kind of calling out the city of San Bernardino because this was what we're trying to do. But it's not just the city, because we've tried county fire.
Yeah.
We've tried other county supervisors.
DAs.
County district attorneys. We've tried SB Sarah, the retirement.
Oh, yeah.
We tried it. And, oh, wait, no.
One person. I was just going to say, I was going to wait for you to finish. There's one district supervisor that said yes to us. It was probably like our only guest from the city. And like I said, we came to her. She was very welcoming. We're talking about Janice Rutherford. She invited us to her office. And it was a great interview, I thought. She answered and,
Yeah, and we are like totally off the topic.
We are.
But this is a message that we want folks to hear and understand, is that maybe these folks that are asking us to give more money need to be more available. Need to, what I'm saying, come to the podium and be more available and willing to speak.
Right.
To why they. And
it's not like we're asking personal questions. I mean, we're talking about topics that consist of things that are happening in our city. So, right. As somebody that lives in the Inland Empire, I want to know why. I want to educate myself, So it's not like it's things that are questions where it's like, dun, 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 U-Turn Radio does these crazy, mean question. No.
Bushwhack.
Come on.
The like I said, we did totally get off topic, but this is kind of an important one. And maybe the fact that we are moving the show to Thursdays from 3 to 4, that's kind of more working hours. Maybe our request for interviews will be more positively considered.
If you were to tell me to put money on this, to either vote yes or no, I'll say I'll put all my chips in. I don't think that's going to happen, but okay, Tom.
You cynic. you cynic. Okay, so that was a complete kind of aside or riff in terms of communications with local governments. So to kind of circle back and get back to the topic at hand. So we did $52.5 million across both counties. Is now that's an increased amount of money that's going to be going into the general fund of the cities. 16.2 that's going to come from the sale and regulation of pot. 27 million is going to come from sales taxes, and then 8.3 million is going to come from the utility transfer tax that we talked about.
And that kind of more or less adds up to the $1.3 billion that you were talking about?
That adds up to about $52.5 million.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
The rest of that is the school bond bonds that we're gonna hit maybe on near the end of the show. And we talked a little bit about the utility transfers, so we probably don't need to revisit that. But the real concern there I would have for the folks in Colton, the voters in Colton and the other two cities that agreed to this, is, it takes money to run an electric utility, and it takes big money, because
right.
that's usually big stuff, big generators, that type of stuff. When they fail, it's,
that's what they have to rely on.
Millions of dollars type of thing.
Yeah.
And the first question I'd be asking if I were living out in Colton would be, I'd go to the facilities guy at the city, or whoever runs or is responsible for managing that utility, and say, how do you feel about this? How's your recurrent and how's your preventive maintenance going? Are you keeping up with your maintenance? Are you able to put stuff as like the folks up in Lake Arrowhead,
right.
the water district? Are you able to put money aside for these large capital projects, or are they kind of digging into the seed corn?
So you're saying that you would go and ask this question too?
Totally. If I were living in Colton,
resident?
I'd go. I could say, hey, Mr. Person or Mrs. Person that runs the utilities, they used to be transferring 12% of the return on your work over to the general fund.
Yeah.
They've increased that now to 20%. and they did that by getting rid of a sundown clause in this thing. They were supposed to be able to transfer 20% until like 2021. And then it was supposed to go back to 12%. But what they approved was forever and anon, the city council can take up to 20% of the return from the utility bills and transfer it over to the general fund. So you're shifting money from one thing to another. And yeah, the absolute first thing I do if I was a concerned resident of Colton would be go over and talk to the utility folks and say, how's this affecting the long-term viability of this operation?
Well, I'm going to take a wild guess here, and I'm going to think that maybe a concerned resident from Colton probably did that, but they probably didn't get back to him. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just speaking from experience when people don't get back to me. So that could have happened, Tom. I'm just going to throw it out there.
This experience really has marked you, isn't it? You're pretty
just a little bit. Just a little bit. I just want to know certain things, I guess. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's people that ask. I'm pretty sure that there's people that are saying, no way. Like, I already live with this amount of, like, this is my, this is my budget.
You know, it'd be interesting to know if somebody from Colton has asked that question. I assume somebody has to, but, people are so busy, just living their lives, trying to pay the bills, that type of thing. It can get lost in terms of, okay, we're going to transfer more money. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, no, I'm going to say that there's a retired person who has time and probably went and didn't get an answer back.
Wait. Are you stating this as fact or are you speculating?
I'm speculating. Absolutely. I'm just saying because from my experiences, I've gone to the supervisors' meetings on a Tuesday at 10 in the morning, and the people that I've come across that are fighting for whatever topic is that they're covering, for most part, are retired people. So that's why I'm assuming that somebody that's retired probably did go because they have time.
Mission. We have a mission now.
Here we go. What am I setting myself up for here?
We have to do some investigative work and find that person who had the time to go to the city council meetings in Colton.
Okay.
And listen to the whatever discussion they had about putting this measure on the ballot.
Okay.
We have to go find that person and see if they've asked those questions.
I'm going to ask them for an interview. I'm pretty sure they'll be more than happy to be here live on U-Turn Radio. All right, let's keep moving.
Okay, so we've kind of addressed the one pool of money or actually increased pool of money that's going to city governments in the local area, and that is the sales tax increases. I think it was either 6 out of 6 passed, and so the local government is taking more money from citizens via sales tax,
right,
and investing that in general operations of the city. Now it's really fair, and I'm kind of, do we want to move on to the school stuff, or do we want to talk about this a little more? It's really fair to ask, what are you spending your whole budget on, and it's. So if I were a citizen of one of these cities, I'd go look at the budget.
Yeah.
Particularly budget trends. What did you spend on salaries 5 years ago? What are you spending on salaries 4, 3, 2 year? What's the trend here?
And these are public records, so
yeah.
We would definitely
a lot of times on their website.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, what are you spending on pension contributions? What did you spend? What did you do 5 years ago, 432? And I think that's an area where they'll see a substantial jump.
Sometimes
increase.
I wonder, like, usually when husband and wife, when you live on your own, you have budgets, right?
Yeah.
And so you know what you're spending, what goes to what. So now when we're talking about our government or the people that are in these positions, why don't they treat it the same? Because if that's the way you're spending at home, then you have no business probably running for things where you're in charge of a budget in a city. That's way more money. That's a lot of money that you probably don't know how to budget. So what I'm saying, it's like, why don't we take the same care that we're doing at home with our budgets in a bigger, like, government. Does that make sense?
That's a great question, and I'm actually gonna not give you a great answer, but I'm gonna give you an experience that I had. Remember, I worked within the federal government for 23 years in the military. So the end of the fiscal year is the end of September, right?
Okay.
So let's say you had $100,000 budget during the course of the year. I'm just picking that number. And let's say at the middle of August, you have $20,000 left in your budget. You know, okay.
Extra.
Yeah,
left.
you got 20,000 remaining. Okay, same thing for a household. Let's say you budget 100,000, and you know you're coming to near the end of your fiscal year, and you got 20,000 left. What do you think the household is going to do with that 20,000?
They're probably going to go buy a car.
They might if they let's say their cars are functional and working fairly new.
They're probably going to go buy a toy. And when I say toy, like maybe like a boat, like something like a side thing, maybe.
The whole thing, the whole $20,000.
Something. I mean, if they're saying this is extra money.
Most households I know are going to say, you know, let's do a little bit. Let's take $5,000 and
do a vacation
and do a vacation or something like that. But let's take that $15,000 and, you know, half of it into savings for a rainy day and half of it to pay principal on the mortgage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're gonna handle it in their self-interest, but they're going to handle it wisely, right?
Right.
Okay. Here's what and this. I'm not experienced in city government or county government, but I can almost guarantee you that this is what happens in every government budgeting process. You get near the end of the fiscal year. You got, you know, our example, you got $20,000 left. Do you say, hey, I'm gonna this 20 grand came out of the pockets of the people out there in the street. I'm going to give it. I'm not going to spend it. I'm actually going to save it and put it back to the general fund or something like that. Do you think they do that?
Probably not.
No. And do you know why they don't do that?
I don't know.
Because what happens if as a manager in the federal government, if you came back and said, here's $20,000 back, I didn't need it, what's going to happen to your budget next year?
It's going to get smaller.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't need 100,000. Yeah. We're going to give you 80,000. So as a manager, what are you going to do?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And this you can look it up. End of the year spending.
But I mean, does that mean, hey, let's spend it all and overspend it, and now we're over budget? At
the single, you know, budget manager level, you won't overspend it. You'll buy silly things. If you look at federal government procurement, there's a lot of furniture bought in like late August and September.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like, I got all this money. What do I do with it? Oh, let's go buy new furniture because I don't want to give it back, because if I give it back, they'll give me less next year in my budget.
Right.
So I got to spend it. I got to spend it on something. So it's like, let's get new furniture. And I'm fairly certain this happens at every level of government spending. It's just the way the budgets work. You get penalized if you give anything back, so you spend it on...
That's so crazy to me.
Oh, I'll do a little work, send you some articles. Yeah. Whereas if it's your money,
yeah,
you're not gonna go buy new furniture unless you really need it, right?
I mean,
maybe I'll put it aside for kids' tennis shoes or something like that. You're not going to spend it frivolously. You're going to think about it.
I totally see what you're saying. I guess I never really saw a different point of view, and why they would not say, hey, let's just save this money, because we're talking about government, we're talking about like big money. At a household, when you say 20,000, for example, that you were giving, it's like, okay, it's 20,000, and some will spend it all, or some will just be like, let's save this money, because you never know, especially if something happens in the house that has to get fixed and that type of stuff. But I never really thought that you could get a penalty for not spending your budget, or not even changing the rules to say, hey, I did a good thing. I don't know what next year is going to look like. I might need more. But here's like some safe money that we're going to be able to count on extra.
All the time.
That's nuts. I never knew that.
It's called, yeah, it happens. It happens all the time.
Interesting.
In my experience, I know that it happens in the federal government.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that it doesn't happen at the state and the local level.
Wow.
Yeah. So, okay. So, moving on to the second pool.
Okay.
So the second pool of money is borrowed money, right?
Right.
So it actually, there might be something a little bit amiss in my calculation here because school bonds are not approved unless they get more than 55% of the vote. So so there might be a little extra money in here, but let's say it's $1 billion. That's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is if you look at these measures in the different school districts on why we need more money, they all read, if not word for word, it's the same idea. Mm-hmm. It's basically give us more money or let us borrow money to fix facilities. Trust us, we're not going to spend it on anything other than facilities. And oh, by the way, there's going to be a citizen oversight board on how the money is spent. So does that give you confidence if you're...
First of all, the more that I'm learning about this, the more trust issues that I'm having here. Jeez. It's schools, right? We want schools to be awesome. I seriously believe that, kids are our future. Therefore, you want to invest in certain things for their education. Absolutely.
No, completely agree with that. What's kind of the record or the record of performance for schools in California in general? What's the trend?
Their performance? It's really low.
Doreen, our videographer,
right?
She's just did kind of the dive with her hand, and that's it, exactly it. And if you compare, if you put on a graph, Doreen's downward slope, mm-hmm. and then you graph it with spending on schools, what do you think the spending looks like?
Really high.
Yeah, it's an upward slope. So, simple me is looking at that going,
what's going on?
More money isn't necessarily translating to better performance in the schools.
I agree. And plus, they've taken from a lot of schools, they've taken a lot of the arts and craft programs out or classes out because of budget. So then when you look at these two different graphs, you're like, well, wait, they took out art class, they took out music classes, and
And what's really kind of frustrating is the text of these things always kind of emphasize the fact we're only going to spend this on facilities, and there was a 2004 opinion from the California district attorney that they still use that no, they indeed can use the money to fund salaries, et cetera, particularly for folks that are kind of working on these projects in the school districts. So like in the county that I live in, San Diego, over 8 years, they spent like $44 million of borrowed money mm-hmm. on paying salaries. That's crazy. It is crazy.
But from my understanding, it's not like teachers are getting paid all this crazy amount of money.
That's probably a different show. They aren't making a crazy amount of money. But that
money is being spent somewhere.
Yeah, and what's really, if you look at it, what's really stressing school district budgets again is the pension contribution that's required is killing them.
Gotcha. Well, that's kind of wrapping it up for us. I always feel like we're running out of time, but we've mentioned throughout the show we are coming next year, January 3rd.
Yeah,
that's on Thursday.
Yep.
We will be live here at 3
3 to 4.
3 to 4. There
Start
we go.
at 3, 4. So if you're driving home during that time, dial us up and call us on your hands-free, mute, whatever, cell phone.
Right, and we'll
spin
for charity, and you'll get to learn how we are spending our money at a local level. And I think I'm gonna get a shirt made saying the government gives me trust issues after having this show here with Tom.
If you get that shirt, that's exactly what one of our founding fathers would have had on his shirt, and he would have bought some for his kids too. But this whole thing was designed on a lack of trust for government, and legitimately, we shouldn't expect people with power to just use it graciously.
To be trusted. Well, that wraps it up. If you want more U-Turn, go to uturnradio.com.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
A wild and crazy finish. I'm Jeff Nathanson with props to Steve Martin from years ago. What a finish today between the Patriots and the Dolphins. New England was poised to win.